Ephesians 2:10, he calls me his masterpiece. He calls me his art.
Hello Secret Society, welcome to my secret room. In today's video, I'm going to be doing a 2x6 V ventilation closure. Today's video is more detailed than the last one I did on my YouTube channel. I'm really sorry that it wasn't so clear enough. So today I want to give a detailed video. And I also want to say thank you to those that have been viewing, commenting and liking my posts. That means so much to me. You have no idea. I pray that as we go on, as you keep learning today, that God gives you the wisdom on how to apply the knowledge that you've learned. I hope you enjoyed the video. So let us go into, first of all, the introduction of what the 2x6 closure is all about. Ever wondered why this piece is called 2x6? Well, it's 2x6 because it has a depth of 6 inches in the center part and the width of like 2 inches. And I believe it was inspired by Kim Kardashian. That's why most people call it Kim K. For me, yeah, I feel like I would choose this piece every day because of how deep the pattern is and also because of it's very easy to ventilate. In ventilating this beautiful piece, I made use of the normal regular Swiss lace you find in the market. There's something I want you to note about the Swiss lace. Each holes on the lace are made up of hexagons, and each hexagons have different sides. We have the upper left, we have the upper right side, we have the upside, we have the downside, we have the lower left of this hexagon and the lower right. Now each of these hexagons make up rows, and these rows, if you look at it very well, have a vertical line straight down. You have the diagonal line, and then when you flip it to the side, you have the horizontal line. So we'll be using the vertical line and the diagonal line because we're ventilating a V pattern and the chessboard pattern. For the measurement of my lace, the measurement was 2x6 inches. And what I did was, from my 6 inches depth, I measured out 1 inch, which I used for the covering of the back. But what this did was reduced the depth of my center part to 5 inches. I hope that makes sense. I did that because I didn't want my lace looking like this, but rather I wanted the back to be covered like so. So here is the chessboard pattern. It's practically you ventilating on one vertical row. You pick up one piece of hair and ventilate one row. You skip one row and you ventilate the next row. You skip one row again, you ventilate on the next row, and you're ventilating on the downside of each of these hexagon holes. So guys, I did this till I got to the very end of the line. Note, yours should be moving in a horizontal line. That's how you achieve the chessboard pattern. So once you're done with that line, the next thing you need to do is to come down to the downside of the hexagonal line and ventilate in between 2 strands of hair. That's how you achieve the chessboard pattern. You ventilate in between 2 strands of hair on the downside of each hexagon hole, and like you did the upper side, you'll be skipping one row and ventilating one row till you get to the end of the line. Then you do the same thing for the other side. So let me just say this, if you don't get it the very first time, it's completely fine. All you need to do is just keep practicing and you get it very well, because even I messed up myself, so it's okay and it's very fine. At this point, I feel like I was done with 4 to 5 lines and Wasabi was worrying me. So I decided to go ahead and ventilate straight down, like you see me doing right here, because I felt like it can also be done this way. In case you're not used to ventilating it horizontally, you can ventilate it vertically like I'm doing just right now. And to do that, what I do is I measure out, I think 1, 2, 3 hexagon holes, and then I ventilate on the downside still. You measure 3 hexagon holes and you ventilate on the downside, and this would give you this sort of slant like line from one hair to the next one. So here it is again. You measure 3 and you ventilate. You count 3 rather, and you ventilate on the downside of the 3rd hole, like you see me doing here. That's the 3 you're counting is after the hair on top. Okay, so in regards to the numbers of hairs, or before the numbers of hairs, I messed up right here. As you can see, I'm not used to this side. I'm not used to ventilating like this, so I messed up. I had to like remove. I ventilated it 2 holes. Please, who does that? Who does that? I ventilated 2 holes instead of like after like 3 holes, so I had to remove it and was looking a whole lot messy for me. So don't pull out your own like you see me doing. If you have tweezers to use, that would be really appreciated, so that you don't mistakenly rip your nails. And then after I like ventilated this pattern, I went back to do the one where I sabi chicket. So I was going to say something about the numbers of hair I use. I just use single strands in front with single knots, and then for the back side I use more than 2 to 3 strands because of I wanted to have a little bit of wave in the whole hair. Like majority of the numbers of hairs I used were single hairs because I didn't have enough hair to work with. So I feel like the numbers of hair you use is dependent on you. You should mostly use single knots and single strands on areas you want to appear realistic. So like I'm doing right here, I'm using single knots on the front side because I want that area to appear very realistic. Now we're going straight into the V pattern, the part we've all been waiting for. So I want you to go back and look at that pattern again. This V pattern is basically you ventilating in a diagonal way, like you see me describing right now. What I do is I look for the closest diagonal line to the hair beneath me and I ventilate on it. So this part I just ventilated was the closest hair. Then I skip one line and I ventilate on the next diagonal line. Note I have to ventilate from the center downwards. I don't know if my explanation makes sense, but just keep looking at it. So I'm ventilating at the upper right hexagon. Just like that picture I just showed you. And I ventilate it downwards to the other side. And I'm skipping one diagonal line and I'm ventilating the next diagonal line. Like I mentioned initially, I'm ventilating as close as I can to the hairs at the back so that everything can align with what I have in front. And when it comes to the center, I determined my center by the half of 2 inches, which was my width. That's how I determined my center part. In case you were wondering, it's possible to actually ventilate one upper line of the hexagon and skip one, like I'm doing just here. It wouldn't affect the hair. The only thing you have to then do is to add the numbers of strands you're picking so that the hair can have volume. And when you get to probably 6 rows close to the center, you can then decide to not leave any lines like you see me doing right here. But the thing is, I didn't leave any lines. I ventilated every single line on my own diagonal line. But I'm just trying to show you here that in case you don't have time to ventilate every single line, you can actually skip one line. So this is what we're working with. This is how far we've come. To determine where to place the next hair for the V pattern, regardless of the direction your lace is facing, I'll need you to align this hexagon hole to the next hexagon hole. That's in between the center line. And I'm ventilating the lower right hexagon of the right side. So look at what I'm doing right here. This hair is being ventilated on the lower left hexagon. To ventilate on the right side, I'm going to skip the center line and ventilate on the lower right side of the hexagon. Then ventilate till the very end of the line. I'd suggest you do not use only single strands like I did. Rather, I'd advise you use more than 2 strands to give it more volume or more density. So once I'm done with that first diagonal line, all I need to do next is skip the next diagonal line and ventilate after the one I've skipped. So I'm going to be stopping the same place I stopped for the previous diagonal line. this exact spot, that's where I'm stopping because it aligns with the one at the back. So you continue this process, skip one line, do the next one. I just wanted to say that I've used split knot once to do this V ventilation pattern, and it didn't really give me the same result that single knot would give me. Instead, the knots were like split and it covered the diagonal line. So I apologize, I didn't show you the whole process. I just skipped a bit, and this is what our lace is looking like. I'm loving the way it looks. So I want to show you how I do my front hairline. What I do first of all is I ventilate the remaining piece of hair upwards. In ventilating this piece of hair upward, I was not really particular about where I was fixing my hair. I fixed the hair in the direction of which I believe the front hairline falls. But one thing I note when I'm fixing a realistic front hairline is to note the shading. Our hairline comes in a form of like a shade, very thin in front and very thick behind. So I just create that kind of format when I'm ventilating. So guys, here is what this body is looking like. I so love realistic hairline pattern. I love everything about this hair. I love everything about this hair. So this is the final look. What do you guys think about the final process? Thank you for watching. Love you. God loves you more. Bye.